What's up, Wolfpack fans? What's up, Duke Blue Devil fans? It's time for our special Locked On crossover episode ahead of Saturday's matchup on Tobacco Road. I am Grayson Boone, host of Locked On Wolfpack. Joining me is former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. And our special guest for the day, JJ Jackson, the host of Locked On Blue Devils. JJ, how we doing?
Very excited to be back with you guys once again. Anytime we get to do a Locked On crossover for Duke and NC State, I get fired up, man. I'm glad that we're getting more of these annual football games between the two schools. It was never fun when sometimes you would go 5, 6, 7 years without these teams playing one another, man. So I'm glad we get to watch that this weekend.
Our crossover episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you can get a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place just $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if that $5 bet hits. Head on over to FanDuel.com in order to get started. Well, JJ, it's almost basketball season. I know the season has technically started. We're going to keep this football centered, although if you want to talk about the Elite Eight, we can certainly get into that. But
I was hoping we'd stay away from that one, yeah.
Football focused here. We have a big matchup in Raleigh. NC State is hosting 6-3 Duke. We're going to get into the Duke question first, and later on we'll switch chairs. JJ will ask us the NC State questions. We'll get to our final thoughts and predictions to close out. So, JJ, just to start here, first year of Manny Diaz. He's got Duke off to a 6-3 start. What's the overall vibe check amongst Duke fans?
Really excited and optimistic about where the program is at. Right now, it's tougher that they've lost 2 in a row, 2 of the 3 of the last 5. So not playing their best football right now, but considering that you're already bowl eligible, considering that in so many ways, the momentum that Mike Elko was able to establish over 2 seasons as the head coach is carrying on, has got Duke fans really excited. It's no secret. This is a basketball school. We love talking basketball literally every single day of the year. It's just been fun that Manny Diaz is going to be able to continue this run that Duke's been on as of late, where it is exciting to talk about Duke football and where they've been at and that sort of thing. So hopefully they can keep this winning going, but it's nice to know that they will be competing for a bowl game at the end of the season.
Well, it's always nice to have your team make a bowl game, but let's get into the specifics of this Duke team for just a second. Let's talk about how they got there. We all know that the defense is a strong suit of this team. What makes this defense so special and different from what most teams are prepared for seeing on a week-to-week basis?
Yeah, KG, I think they just get after you. I think that defensive front has been really impressive, and in a lot of ways, people didn't really know that would be the case, given some departures that Duke had on that defensive front from a season ago. But when you're talking about the likes of VJ Anthony and Wesley Williams, with the impact that they've had in that defensive front for Duke, I think that's been one of the biggest reasons why they've been so successful. Duke's been towards the top of the entire country so far this season in tackles for loss, quarterback pressure, sacks, all of those things. You look at last year, Penn State was number 1 in all of those categories with Manny Diaz as their defensive coordinator. Number 2 was Texas State a year ago, where Jonathan Packey was the defensive coordinator, a former DC for Manny Diaz at Miami. They're now together once again, Packey now coordinating this Duke defense with Manny Diaz as the head coach. And so I think the reason that the defense has been able to stand out so much, and Kenton, I'm talking to you, the former defensive lineman, is that they are able to be so active, right, and get after the quarterback and make things so simple.
Sticking on the defense here, we actually discussed this on our Wednesday episode. Duke's passing defense ranks first in the ACC with only 192 yards per game. However, tested in a major way against Miami, Cam Ward dropped 400 yards and 5 touchdowns, I believe that was. Does that concern you moving forward that once they face a real passing attack, they seem to struggle a little bit?
I think it's fair to feel that way. I think it's important to point out that, that's a Heisman contender and Cam Ward that's putting up numbers like that, and he's kind of doing that against everybody. But again, I would believe that it's a lot that the defensive front is doing, putting pressure on the quarterback to make him make some poor decisions or not even be able to get throws off against that Duke secondary, because I mentioned kind of the departures that Duke had on the defensive front in that linebacker room going into the season. What has remained consistent is that Duke had a lot of guys on the outside who have played a lot of snaps. Chandler Rivers continues to get better year after year after year. You've got Jalen Stinson and Terry Moore in the back end of your secondary who have been playing football for Duke for quite some time. So really doesn't surprise me that Duke has been able to be so successful against the pass. But to your point, if you are playing against a really talented quarterback who's able to extend plays which I've seen CJ Bailey do a good bit of for NC State, it does get a little worrisome.
When we talk about worrisome, we've got to talk about the Duke offense a little bit. Okay.
Oh boy.
I mean, there have been some struggles. There have been some problems. So I don't need your full prediction. But in this game, if we were to say this game is going to be a race to this number, what would you put that number at to say the team that gets to this number first is most likely going to win this ball game?
Geez, I don't know, KJ. That's a good way. 35. I don't know exactly what I'm thinking. I mean, I feel like Duke's offense has got to find a way to pick it up and score, and they haven't been able to do that quite yet, or as of late, I should say, in some measure. So maybe I'm off there. Maybe it should be a smaller number than that. But I just look at both of these teams. I look at how close that line is for this game that's going to be played, and I like to think that while there were turnovers from Malik Murphy in that Miami game, they were able to get more vertical in the passing game. Jordan Moore was banged up for a little bit in the middle portion of the season. He's gotten better these last few weeks. Eli Pankel is having a career year on the outside, and Duke's been able to kind of go interchanging at the running back position ever since Jaquez Moore got injured with Star Thomas and Peyton Jones. Like the way that they've been playing as of late gives me a little bit more confidence in this Duke football team. I was so concerned in the SMU game, for example, when you keep getting the ball handed to you and you can't score, that at some point your defense is going to break a little bit. That's why I put that number up higher, because I just want to make sure that the defense can continue to hold on and make stops. Because again, they're coming off a 50-burger that they gave up against Miami, and it's an NC State team who just had a 50-burger in an ACC game as well.
We've talked a lot this season about NC State's offense trying to establish some sort of identity. It seems like maybe we have one coming out of last week. We consider Malik Murphy to have kind of a little bit of an up and down year. I say that as objectively as I can.
100%.
What's been your overall synopsis of Malik Murphy and the Duke offense in that way?
Up and down, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's at the beginning of the year, the bright spots were, the ability to run the ball. With Star Thomas having 3 straight 100-yard games. Coincidentally, it came days after his first child came into the world. So it must have been that dad strength that was powering him through have 3 straight 100-yard rushing games. And then the rushing attack slowed down a little bit, and Malik Murphy did pick it up. He was able to kind of push the ball down the field, find the receivers. The running backs were making plays. I think Nicky Dalmolin is one of the best tight ends that we've seen in the ACC so far this season. But the accuracy issues of Malik Murphy have been the biggest thing. Not always in the turnover department, guys, but just his completion percentage at times has been just yucky to look at. I mean, just not too good there. But I think it's been up and down, to say the least, for what we've seen out of Malik Murphy. So if you're seeing that objectively, Grayson, I'm right there with you guys, that I've seen the highs and lows of Murphy all season long.
Well, before we go on the break here, I want to ask you one question, because you've talked about the highs and lows of Murphy, and he was a bit of an unproven commodity, but people were excited about him coming in. What would you grade his performance so far this season coming into this game?
Wow. B- maybe. I think I'd go there in the B range as well. I do want to give him credit for winning these football games, right? I do want to give him credit for this is his first year as a full-time starter at a brand new school with a brand new head coach, a brand new offensive coordinator, that there are no cross paths or anything like that. It's a Duke football team who finally is able to turn that victory bell into the right shade of blue with a big win that they had against UNC. In 22 meetings all time, they had never defeated Florida State before. The games, truthfully, were never within 7 points or less outside of one of them in the 22 meetings. And Duke football beat Florida State. Some of those things, I've got to make sure I give him a little bit of a bonus because that's just things we're not used to seeing so far. So I don't know if I'm off there, but that's kind of what I'm thinking in terms of grading him.
Coming up next, we're going to flip chairs, and JJ will be posing the NC State questions to us. This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Our first Thursday crossover sponsor is Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need the silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with the handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply, and for specific product disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Our second Thursday crossover sponsor is FanDuel. Get ready to tackle NFL action this season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can place a $5 bet and get $150 back in bonus bets if that bet wins. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in just one singular place. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the very same page you're placing all of your bets. Head on over to FanDuel.com in order to join today. You'll get started with that $150 back in bonus bets if that first pesky $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com in order to get started. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Welcome back into this Locked On crossover. It's Locked On Wolfpack and Locked On Blue Devils. We're getting set for an exciting game coming up on Saturday between Duke and NC State. JJ Jackson from Locked On Blue Devils with Grayson Boone and Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. Let me hear from you guys. I mentioned it's been so long since these games have played out. It's nice to have them annually on the schedule from the Duke side of things. Is that same on the NC State side?
I'd say absolutely. I think that's something they really got right, is having these games an annual occurrence. It was preposterous that we went so long without playing each other. And, playing each other every single year in basketball is one thing, but how do you not play each other in football as well? I don't think people understand that there is a little bit of a bitter history between Duke and NC State on the gridiron as well. So I love to see these teams face each other every year. I think that's exactly how it should be.
Absolutely. I'm excited about playing Duke more often. I don't really care for Duke, to be honest. So I'm very much so excited that there's that thing happening. And also, you want bragging rights in the state. Like, I don't care, Duke has basketball for the most part. I mean, hey, most recent ACC championship, Grayson does have a couple banners behind him. But with that in mind, every now and then you got to remind the country club kids, we put our hands in the dirt too. Come on out here. Let's have fun out here. But in all seriousness, I think it's good to have in-state rivalries be played at a higher clip. I think that's super important. And so now that this is a yearly thing, I have no complaints.
We need like a Big Four trophy. You know how Army, Navy, and Air Force have the what is it called, the Commander's Cup?
Right.
We need that for North Carolina. The Big Four schools should have some kind of trophy.
Well, William came up with it, didn't he? He gave out those state championship rings a couple years ago.
For the love of God.
For winning the state championship per se. Maybe every team should lean into that. Maybe
Something
every team
legitimate would be nice.
No doubt. Well, let's get to the 2024 edition of this game that's being played. I was asked, what's the Duke vibe check of things? Kenton, maybe let me hear from you first here. NC State 5-4 the record, coming off a big win where you score 50. For the Duke fans that are listening, what is the NC State vibe check right now?
Well, to quote Dewey from Malcolm in the Middle, the future is now, old man. That's how everybody's feeling. I mean, you're seeing a youth movement that, while NC State has not met expectations to any level in terms of what this team was expected to be coming into the season, in terms of what everybody believed this team could be coming into the season, not even close, right? This was a team that people talked about as, hey, this is ACC championship contender. This is a playoff contender. This is all those things, dark horse for those things. Not even close to that. However, if you are saying that there's not a silver lining in this youth movement, you are a liar. In terms of all of our players who are, leading in statistics, here's a fun fact about NC State. Pretty much any relevant statistic, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, in terms of rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, passing yards, passing touchdowns, all of that, not a single one of those players is out of eligibility next year. Not a single one of them. Most of these guys have more years of eligibility left than they have played. You talk about, the NC State is known as next year university, but I mean, honestly and truly, this is a moment where if you are a fan and you're looking for any reason to cling to hope, there is a ton of it floating around because CJ Bailey looks dynamic. He's getting better and better by the week. And I told people buy stock in him early. I told people Ryan Williams didn't just look good because he's Ryan Williams. Every time you saw him on tape, it was being dropped in the breadbasket. And then you talk about all of the skill position guys around him. KC, who's a sophomore, Joe Lee, who's a junior. You've got Keenan Jackson, who's a guy that when I saw him on tape, I said, he may be the best pure wide receiver out of this class, despite almost every other receiver being ranked ahead of him. And look what he's doing. So you have a ton of guys, and even the elder statesman, Dakari Collins and company, are doing their thing as well. So there are weapons galore, and CJ is being a great point guard, just finding them, dishing out, getting the ball to where it needs to be. And those weapons are weaponing as of late.
So, Grayson, take me to that quarterback position then, because from a Duke perspective, we've had Malik Murphy under center the entire season. That has not changed whatsoever. Really excited to get him out of the transfer portal. For NC State, you go portaling, you find a new quarterback, but that's not the quarterback that's currently playing for this football team. What's it kind of been like having to figure out for a few weeks who's going to be the quarterback, and now we're finally settled into this is our guy?
For any Duke fans that have been singularly focused on basketball, we have had more quarterback troubles here over in Raleigh. Yes, we had Grayson McCall, who we picked up out of the portal from Coastal Carolina. We really had hoped that he would be the guy to lead NC State to heights that we have not seen really ever, and it just didn't really work out. He, struggled out of the gate against Western Carolina, struggled even more against Tennessee in week 2, endures an injury in week 3, and that kind of brought out CJ Bailey to kind of take the reins from there on out. McCall then returns later on in the season. He faces Wake Forest, has that brutal injury that I'm sure many folks have probably seen online. He ultimately decides to retire. The two of us on here, we very much support that decision. Just brutal to see a guy like that have his career cut short. But on the bright side of things, CJ Bailey is just a true freshman, has very much impressed. He's been seemingly ahead of schedule, big picture wise. He's commanding this offense just a little bit better each and every week. And that's really all you can ask of such a young kid. But there's a lot of things that needs to be cleaned up in terms of holding on to the ball too long or not trusting his eyes and not going through his reads downfield. I think that is something that really needs to get cleaned up. And Duke's defense, they're going to provide quite the challenge on those fronts. But all told, it has been another wishy-washy year at the quarterback position, but there's a ton of faith and excitement around what CJ Bailey brings to the table right now.
Okay, let's get more into the game that's going to play out. We'll have final predictions and the score in just a moment. But before we go to the next break, I do have to ask a defensive question. So, Kenton, I'll turn it back over to you as the former defensive lineman for the Wolfpack. Offensively for this Duke football team, what should concern them about this NC State defense? What have they looked like? What are kind of the strengths of the Wolfpack unit?
He is number one in your programs. He is number one in your hearts. There is a bad man from Cary High School by the name of Davin Vann. And I am telling you, he is going to be on Malik Murphy like white on rice. He is relentless. He is indefatigable. He is like Thanos. The young man is inevitable. You understand? And you need more people than he's bringing to the party to stop him. But more importantly, it's not just about him. The defensive line as a whole for NC State have been the unsung heroes of this defense. Because there have been ups and downs and all that defensively in a way that we haven't seen from Tony Gibbs coach defenses, people are missing that. Even on Grayson and I do a thing called a locked on look of the week where we show a pivotal play every week. If it's a win, we generally show a positive play. If it's a loss, we show a negative one. One thing that I have seen, and Grayson has noticed this as well, on every play in our losses, the defensive line is showing up in a meaningful way. There was a play against Wake Forest where every player on the defensive line got so much push, the running back could not go front side. There was no opportunity for him to say, let me follow the natural flow of this. And even if the argument is, well, it was a zone play where they intentionally let him upfield, if you see the way this play developed, Brandon Cleveland basically dragged the center back into the back's lap. So like that regardless of how you scheme it up, nobody's scheming for that. And yet things still weren't done on the second and third level in appropriate ways. So that play ends up breaking for a, 40 some odd yard touchdown.
Yeah.
This defensive line is special. The unfortunate part about the 3-3-5 is there's just less of them around.
I'm excited to see it play out. Excited to see what the Stuke offense is going to look like against that NC State defense. Let's talk more matchups and things to be on the lookout for with this game in particular. We'll do that after one final timeout here on this Locked On crossover. This Locked On episode today is brought to you by our friends over at Hims. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and the generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's hims.com, HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The product mentioned are chewable compounded products, which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for detail and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Him is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils and Locked On Wolfpack.
Last couple minutes here of our Thursday Locked On crossover episode. Locked On Wolfpack, Locked On Blue Devils. We thank JJ Jackson for joining us on here. JJ, before we get into some score predictions, I want to talk X factors real quickly. Give me one on offense for Duke and one on defense for Duke that you predict could be the X factors in this one.
I want to go to Jordan Moore on the offensive side of the ball at the wide receiver spot. Duke loses by 22 points against Miami last week, and yet if you were watching SportsCenter on Saturday night like I was, Jordan Moore walked away with the number one play in top 10 for the football game on Saturday with a one-handed grab that he had, Odell-esque. Pretty amazing play that he made. He's been awesome to watch this season. He's been a big reason why Malik Murphy has had some of those big passing games that he has so far throughout the year. So Jordan Moore, number 8 on your TV, is somebody to be on the lookout for. And then defensively, let me go into the back end of the secondary with C.J. Bailey likely to extend some plays now and again. I want to know what Jalen Stinson can do for the Duke football defense. Number 2, when you're watching him on your screens, he's a hard hitter over the top safety there, but able to pick up in coverage as well. I think he's going to be a big-time player. Who are those players for NC State for you guys?
I'll give you the one for offense, and I'll flip it over to Kenton for the defense. We've talked a lot about NC State needing to find some balance in this game, and it'd be kind of a cop-out to say C.J. Bailey because he's going to have to be big in order for NC State to win this game. But I think, oddly enough, we've talked a lot about having to go pass heavy. Hollywood Smothers, which is our running back, he's been a freshman. He's slotted behind Jordan Waters. I know that's a name that y'all will know. Jordan Waters has been kind of here and kind of there all over the place. He had a great week last week, but we don't know if that's fool's gold or not. Hollywood Smothers, on the other hand, he has been consistently dynamic every single time he's been in the lineup. He missed a couple games in the middle part of the season, came back, and he's been electric every single game since. That will be your guy to watch for Duke's defense. That's number 20 for NC State.
I want to misquote Lil Wayne here because go DK. That's my DK. DK Kaufman is the defensive X factor here. And some people who are watching this on the NC State side are going to say, no, he's not an X factor. He plays well every game. DK Kaufman can be very up and down in terms of who he is from week to week, but that's what the essence of an X factor is. As he goes, generally, so does the team. And this doesn't mean that when he has his down times, he doesn't make big plays. He absolutely does, even in his down weeks, make big plays. The problem is, in those weeks, he has that one or two plays where you're just like, what is that angle? How do you think that that's going to work? And so, I really and truly do believe that if DK Kaufman has a good game here, if we're looking at the type of week that's like, oh, he's potentially DB of the week, NC State has won handily.
DK Kaufman is very much the living embodiment of a no, 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 yes, but also a no, 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 oh my God, no type of guy. So it's really great or really bad, and there's really no in between. JJ, we'll go ahead and get into our score predictions here. 3:30 kick in Raleigh. NC State's currently favored by 3.5, believe it or not. Give us your final score predictions for Saturday's game.
Yeah, I'm excited to see this one play out. I think NC State is riding high after that 50 points that they were at 50 plus that they were able to point out this past week. I do think Duke is in a tough spot here going back on the road, and the offense has been a little inconsistent over the last few weeks. That does concern me. I don't see the path to victory, so to speak, for this Duke football team. I'm hoping. I'm very wrong here. I'm very off. I think Vegas is pretty close on this one and how they see it. I said getting to 35 a little bit earlier. I think this is a 38-30 type of game, maybe 38-28 in favor of NC State picking up the win on this one.
Kenton, what you got?
Well, I told Grayson I got a bad feeling that we got that Duke defense is going to create a CJ Bailey disaster class possibly. I don't know why, but I've got a bad feeling about it. The only unfortunate part for Duke is I don't think that their offense can capitalize on the disaster class, as we saw against Kevin Jennings and company. So I've got NC State winning a really close, ugly rock fight, 17-10.
I also have fun to watch.
Hey, it ain't fun to watch for y'all. They're great to watch for me. They're great to watch for me.
I also have a little bit of a weird feeling in my stomach. For some reason, I'm thinking this one goes to overtime, and I think it's going to be relatively low scoring. I think NC State, walk back a year ago, we got embarrassed out in Durham. It was 24-3. The season felt like it was completely in peril at that point in time. But what they did after that, they turned it around. They went 5-0 to finish that season. This season, kind of more peril in the beginning, but they have decided after going out to California and getting a win and then dropping a 50-burger on Stanford, they want to finish this year like they did last year. They want to finish on that 5-0 or 4-0 after the bye type of run here. I have confidence that they're going to get it done. It's not going to be easy. I think Duke's defense is impressive, and I don't necessarily think they get enough credit for how good they are, but this one's going to be low scoring. I think Hollywood Smothers, who I mentioned, I think he will be the difference, either by air or on the ground. I have NC State winning in overtime by a score of 24-17.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun one. I think we're really going to watch this game being played out. I'm excited to see this one kick off 3:30 Eastern over the weekend there in Raleigh. So, guys, really excited to do these Locked On crossovers with you. Thank you for limiting the basketball references that we had, right, as the team that knocks Duke out of the ACC tournament and then also goes one step further and ends them in the Elite Eight. But we'll have many more of these coming up throughout the basketball season, I'm sure.
Hey, with Cooper Flag in the triangle now, we may have to do another crossover at some point here
Let's
later
make it
in the
happen.
fall and into the winter. But JJ, as always, thanks for jumping on here with us. Looking forward to a great matchup on Saturday, afternoon into the evening. Thank you all so much for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe this podcast. Be sure to give JJ a follow and a subscribe on Locked On Blue Devils. He does excellent work over there, not just for basketball fans, but football also. JJ, until then, we'll see everyone on Saturday. Thanks for joining us.